In a world filled with information, where do you turn to get straight talk about retirement, investments, and your money? Lock it in to the longest-running financial talk show in Arkansas, and let us help you build the bridge between information and application. Real financial change begins right here, and it starts with you.
It's showtime!
We all want to live a long, healthy, and happy life, but the retirement reality here is living a long life can be a problem. On today's show, making sure you don't outlive your money and you're prepared for the unexpected.
This is the Get Ready for the Future show.
Welcome in. Hi, everybody. It is the Get Ready for the Future show. I'm Scott Inman, along with me, John Shrewsbury. I'm back in the chair this week after a 1-week hiatus. John filled in for me. How'd that go? Everything go okay last week?
This is kind of like, I don't know, me substituting for Devo Davis in the round of 32 or something like that. So
wow.
Can't really do the Scott Inman, but I really try.
Okay, let me let my head come back to normal size now. That's very flattering. I appreciate that. I'm sure it was great though, but I appreciate you filling in.
I tried really hard.
Yes, I'm sure you did a good job. Hey, do want to start today's show. We have a special guest joining us in just a moment, Lauren Mitchell, who's the Vice President of Annuity Solutions with LPL Financial, and we're going to talk about longevity today. But before we dive into that, I want to spend just a minute talking a little bit about the future of the Get Ready for the Future show. You know, we bring things into clarity every once in a while. I remember it was less than 2 years ago. We had this all new set made. We really like it. It's been great being in the West Little Rock office to have more space than we had when we came to you from the Bryant office. So occasionally we're going to make some modifications and tweaks that are going to make this show better. And now we are ready to unveil a whole new format. Here's what's going to happen, John. We're going to start bringing your questions. And when we say you, I'm not talking about John Shrewsbury. I'm talking about those who are listening right now or watching on live stream. Your questions are going to be a part of the Get Ready for the Future show moving forward.
Yeah, this is really all about, Scott, us talking to you as opposed to at you. We've got a lot of stuff that we can say almost any day. We're full of information and we want to bring that information to you, but we want it to be relevant. We want it to count for something as far as you are concerned. And so we felt like it would be great to have the opportunity to have questions from our audience, from our clients, from our listeners, to be able to allow us to be very relevant in our answers to you. So, Scott, how are we going to actually do this? How are we going to pull this off?
So I think it's also important to set this up because when this program began, which is now on the internet, it's live streamed and then captured where you can go back and watch it on the internet. It is also on podcast and it is also on radio. So it is really impossible for us to hit all of those platforms and do a live call-in show. Very difficult to do that. But when this program began, it was a live, caller-driven Saturday morning talk show. And that's really the gist of what we're trying to bring back, but we're doing it in a 21st century way. Not that people don't still have call-in talk shows, but we're giving you multiple ways to get your questions in to us. Here's how to do it. You can call in and you can leave a voicemail, okay? You can text us at 501-381-5228. That's the number we use for all sorts of resources that we make available to you.
And that is the same number that if you want to ask a question, you can call and there will be an opportunity to record your question on that voicemail, or you can use that same number to text your question to us.
Yeah, so 501, that's a number I've asked you to put down and put in your contacts in your phone for a long time now because we use it for a lot of different free resources. 501-381-5228. Or if you would rather send us an email, you can go that route too. The email address is info@getreadyforthefuture.com. All those words slammed together, no dots or dashes between it. Just getreadyforthefuture.com, and we'll give you the chance to have your questions answered on the air. And when we say the whole new format, like that is going to be the show.
Yes.
We're going to do Q&A.
Yes. And I love that because it, as you alluded to, Scott, it gets back to the root of the Get Ready for the Future show, where we literally started this and just threw the phone lines open on the bus us and went, okay, what do you want to know about money? And you responded. And that's why this show has gone for 16 years now, I believe it is, in the local market. And we're able to help you know more about retirement, your investments, and your money when we are very appropriately asking you to ask us questions and let us respond.
And quite frankly, we would love for someone to come in and we get the chance to do a full comprehensive financial plan. That takes a little effort on your part, right? You got to gather a lot of things up. Maybe you're not ready for that step. Well, this gives you an opportunity to, hey, I would like to know a little bit more about this, whether it's budgeting, how do I get out of debt, investment related, retirement related. We're able to address those questions as best we could. There'll be limits to that when we don't know everyone's individual circumstances, but we want to give them the opportunity to have their questions answered by financial advisors.
And I would say also, Scott, what are you concerned about?
Yeah.
We got a lot of concerns going on in the world right now. It is very, very important that those concerns get the right answer, because also what's going on in the world right now is a ton of information headed your way all day, every day from tons of sources, a lot of noise out there. What you've got to have is clarity, and we want to provide financial clarity for you to be able to be financially independent.
All right, one more time, 501-381-5228. Leave a voicemail or text, or email us at info@getreadyforthefuture.com. So on our final show, before we start answering the questions, we're going to be asking them today.
Yeah.
All right. So our first question to get into the longevity talk is Star Wars or Star Trek?
Star Trek. Absolutely.
We've had that question before.
Yeah, we have.
Now, I've watched Star Trek. I'm familiar with Star Trek, like Star Trek, but I am Star Wars all the way, just to be on the record.
Can you do the live long and prosper thing?
So this dates us a little bit, right?
Just a little bit.
I mean, you could go back to the 60s for the TV show.
Yep.
You could go back to the 80s for the movies, but that's the sign, right? If you're watching this on live stream, that's live long and prosper. Who did that?
That's Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock. And don't we all want that, right?
That's right. Everybody wants it.
But he never talked about how you're going to pay for your live long and prosper, right?
No, he just embellished that on you and said, "Hey, look, he's really encouraged you to live long and prosper. That's a wish. That's a hope for you, and that literally is what we want here at GenWealth for you."
On today's Get Ready for the Future show, so we're exploring how living a long life might create problems for your retirement. And joining us on today's show is Lauren Mitchell. She is the Vice President of Annuity Solutions with LPL Financial. So let's welcome in Laura. Lauren, how are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me today.
Yeah, thanks for standing by. I know you've been on hold there for just a little bit while we talked about the
great to hear you guys.
upcoming changes to the show. But we wanted to bring you in for this discussion about longevity. We know that the threat of outliving your assets or your savings is really what we're talking about here. It's known as longevity risk. It's one of the three big risks, John, that every retiree faces. It's a risk that doesn't really get covered, though, when you talk about the media side of this. I mean, we're really talking about it's all focused on investments. It's all focused on return. It's all focused on what are your assets doing for you on that side of the equation. But really, we're talking about what are your assets doing for you from an income perspective and making sure you don't run out of that income.
Yeah, nobody thinks that living a long life is a bad thing until your money runs out of time before you do. And so clearly this is a problem that eggheads like, you and me and Lauren all kind of noodle on all the time. How do we be sure that our clients' money will last as long as their life lasts?
So there are two big issues here. The pressure of stretching your savings, your investments and assets over a longer than normal period of time. And then the other side of that is the effect of declining health and the cost of chronic health care and the drain it places on the investments, that preparing for the unexpected, let's call it that. So those are the two things we're going to discuss today. And Lauren, let's start with addressing one of the biggest problems surrounding longevity. Investors and financial advisors have, for the most part, done a spotty job of addressing this issue. What are your general thoughts about that?
Sure. So let me just share a couple of statistics, and you all touched on it earlier a few minutes ago when you were talking about, inviting folks in to come and work with you to set up a financial plan. It takes some work, right, and gathering a lot of information, but it's so important. Nearly a quarter of consumers don't have any kind of financial plan put into place. About 28% of consumers have an overall direction in mind of what they want to do and how they want to plan for the future. They know what they want to do, but they just don't have a plan to get there, right? And planning, the actual documentation, thinking through those details, putting them down into a plan are just so important for both you all as well as the financial advisor that you're working with, right? To stick to the plan, make adjustments to it, and see as life, changes, what adjustments need to be made to that financial plan as well to help you achieve those goals. Just over half of consumers believe that their sources of income will last for their lifetime. So those are just kind of some initial thoughts, that come to mind.
Lauren, at first glance, that is, this seems to be a fairly straightforward problem. But when you really kind of dig down and take a closer look at it, what are the factors that really affect someone's longevity?
Yeah, there's quite a few, right? Longevity can be affected by all sorts of things: education level, whether you're a male or a female, your genealogy, and you think about your family history, whether your parents and grandparents lived a long life or not, where you live, location, economics, your economic background, personal health, and your access to medical care. All of those factors can really influence somebody's longevity.
Scott, I know we get really odd looks sometimes when we're in a meeting room having an initial appointment with a client, and I ask about their parents and what their ages are and how long, and if they're gone, how long they lived and all that type of thing. People are just kind of wondering, wait a minute, I'm here to talk about my finances. Why are we talking about my parents? But the genealogy, as Lauren pointed out, is a factor there, because if you have a history of longevity in your family, it's likely to be passed down to you.
Right. And I think that, one of the things that I frequently tell clients when they're in that initial appointment is if you can tell me your date of death, we can build the perfect financial plan. Right. But nobody knows that. So there's a lot of this that is never going to be, no matter how much we'd like it to be, an exact science. But I always say we need to plan for we would rather plan for a long life and not get it than not plan for a long life and get it. So the idea here is let's don't run out of money before we run out of time. So Lauren, when we talk about how a financial advisor attacks that longevity risk, because that is if you live a long enough life, it's going to be very difficult for your assets to sustain that. So what are some of the tools in the toolbox of a financial advisor that can address the issues of longevity?
Absolutely. There's quite a few, but I'd say there are definitely a couple that stand out that can really address the challenges that we're talking about of longevity in a unique way. One of those is lifetime income annuities that can provide a guaranteed income stream for a person's entire lifetime, no matter how long they live, even as you said, if that's longer than they anticipate, if it's shorter than they anticipate, but again, to plan for that what-if scenario and ensuring that you don't run out of money during those years of your life. So regardless of how the investments perform, a lifetime income annuity can provide that, again, kind of predictable, guaranteed income stream. There's fixed versions available. There are variable investment options available within those types of solutions, as well as index-based solutions. So quite a variety of different risk tolerances available and things that you can customize to put together that plan. There's also what's called buffered or market protected annuities, and those can create a cushion against market downturns over a 5 to 10 year period. So those are just two options that can really provide some unique benefits, again, to address those issues of longevity.
Lauren, I could imagine that, there were at least some people whose, head snapped around when we said lifetime income annuities, because the popular thing these days, I would say this, amongst investment advisors, is to eschew annuities. It's like, oh, no, you won't do that. You want to invest your money in this particular way. And I think that there's been a lot of misinformation proffered by various entities about whether annuities are, quote, good or bad. And I think the question becomes, how does somebody really know whether they should use an annuity or not in their financial plan?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think exactly as you said it, John, right? They're not the right solution for everyone. And I think a lot of the negative press or the negative information out there oftentimes is associated with these assumptions that if you're talking about every consumer out there, then, annuities are bad. Well, right. Because you've got to look at these solutions for the right scenario, right? And who are they right for? They're not right for everybody, but they can be a great solution for someone who's looking for a way to generate guaranteed income, and to create that income protection to cover your basic living expenses in retirement. They could be a great solution for someone who has concerns about the possibility of market risk, creating a situation where you might have less assets to take care of your future needs. But there's things that have to be considered, right? It doesn't come for free. There's costs associated with those levels of protection. There are moving parts and things that come along with them. So you want to make sure that, you're working with somebody who knows the ins and outs of different annuity solutions that are available and can explain and elaborate them clearly to you. And no, they're not right for everyone. And so they can be right for many on the flip side.
Scott, I often say that, to the pundits, they're entitled to their own opinion, but they're not entitled to their own facts.
Right.
And the fact is that most people need to know that they're going to have a certain amount of guaranteed income coming in above their Social Security, because Social Security doesn't just cut it.
Yeah, I think the thing I would say here is if it's on a widespread ad that anybody is saying you should never do this or you should always do that, that's the wrong thing to be saying, because everybody's situation is unique and different. We mentioned the tools in the toolbox. We talk about that from a financial investment product perspective all the time. Most advisors, if they have all the license that we do here at GenWealth, have the same tools in the toolbox, right? But it's a matter of which tool fits the job. You can't pull out a hammer when you need a wrench, right?
That's right.
So you have to go through that planning process to determine if you have a need for something like an annuity. We are talking with Lauren Mitchell today, the Vice President of Annuity Solutions with LPL Financial, and discussing this, what is known in the industry as longevity risk, but in layman's terms, it's basically, could I live a long life and outrun my money? So when you talk about that misconceptions or misinformation, Lauren, that's out there possibly about the annuity and all the negative noise about it, I really think it goes back to the understanding of which annuity we're talking about. Because when people make a blanket statement of annuities are bad, which annuity are we talking about? And when you think about how people respond potentially to the noise about annuities being bad, and how that contrasts with when they're asked if they're interested in owning an investment that guarantees income for life, there's a real divergence there, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. I've seen a lot of research, as I'm sure you both have as well, studies that have been done that really kind of do almost like blind testing with consumers, where they talk about, just like you said, Scott, they describe the benefits of what an annuity solution can deliver without using the phrase or the word annuity. And when that's the case, there's this increased response of interest in that solution. And then you say that they would purchase that type of financial instrument based on the descriptive factors of what they can offer. When you just remove the word annuity, it changes the game. According to the Alliance for Lifetime Income, 79% of people who don't already own annuities say that they're either somewhat or extremely interested in guaranteed lifetime income. So again, they're really focused and interested in the benefits that an annuity can deliver. It's just, you got to remove or sometimes not talk about the label that's been put out there, and with those generalizations and things, as you were talking about before, and the negative connotation that's been given to those kind of very general descriptions has been given.
And I think that, Lauren, you're hitting on exactly what we talk about here at GenWealth on a constant basis, and that is what really matters is the outcome that you get from your financial plan. And the outcome is the provision of income.
Right.
And there is no other investment product that will guarantee a stream of income to you other than an annuity. Now, some of them have very high probabilities of, producing income, dividend stocks and things of that nature, but no one can step up and say, this is a guarantee that will last you from this point forward. And I think, Scott, that's where a lot of people people find that comfort, that 79% that Lauren referred to, that's where they really do nest up.
Sounds like a lot more like a pension, doesn't it? Right?
Yes, it does.
It's privatizing your assets with a portion of your assets to create a pension for you, a lifetime income that you cannot outlive. And I think it's also worth pointing out here, too, that we're not obviously telling everyone that an annuity is right for them. We're also not saying that all of your money belongs in an annuity,
not.
right? Because
no, it doesn't.
The other part of that is that check may remain flat for your lifetime.
Yes.
And you have to have other assets that are invested in things that will grow over a long period of time, historically speaking, so that you can add to that income and give yourself inflation-adjusted raises.
And it all goes back to what we said at the beginning of this interview, is that the plan is the foundation of everything, because it's from the plan that you decide whether or not an annuity is necessary. It's from the plan that you gauge out how much income that you're going to need to increase over time to offset inflation. It's from the plan that everything emanates, and that's why we are a planning first team here at GenWealth.
So how living a long life could be a problem for your retirement? Pretty simple, straightforward. You've saved all your life. Those assets have to last for your entire life. And if there is a component of your income that needs to be guaranteed to meet basic life expenses, an annuity could possibly be a solution for you because of the guaranteed income it can provide. As we continue our conversation with Lauren, let's kind of shift gears now and talk about the second point that we were going to discuss today in the longevity issue, and that's the effect of declining health. So we're going to talk about the aspect of living a long life that puts pressure on your money that is outside of the investment side. It's the expenses of chronic illness that could require long-term care. And I think people generally, John, have an idea of this as far as being a possibility of happening if they live a long life. But there really is, unless you've had personal experience with a family member, and even sometimes when you have, there is a real head in the sand mentality here.
Yeah, this is a next to dying. People don't want to talk about, nursing care and chronic illness and all that type of thing. They just want to avoid it. As you said, Scott, unless you've been through the experience with your parents or another family member where you've had to deal with this issue of paying for their care. And if they didn't have a lot of money set aside to pay for that care, then it really came from the family oftentimes, or they spent down all of their assets and they went on Medicaid, which is a solution that just, trust me, nobody wants that. It's not what you would want for any loved one to have to go on a Medicaid program. But let's talk a little bit about those costs, Lauren, and how people are facing, maybe even being blindsided by the cost of long-term care.
Yeah, and I believe there's some nice graphic visuals that are being showed for everybody to see who's watching. That'll be available to take a look at later as well. But just a couple of pieces of information that I think are very interesting to take a look at. The vast majority of unpaid care is provided by family, as you mentioned, with over half of care being provided by adult children, and only about 7% is provided by a spouse. And so, if you take a look at go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's stop there for just a second. The adult child taking care of providing the care for maybe a parent. If you think about today's society, most families compose of two incomes, so there's two people working. So it's a financial burden, even if the care costs can be covered by the individual who's giving that care. They're going to have to take leave, step out of a job, whatever the case may be, to care for that individual. And I think that's a real problem that a lot of people get blindsided by.
Absolutely. Yeah. And just, all the additional things that come along with that too, right? On top of the financial stress, just emotional stress, right? All kinds of things that kind of come along with that for sure. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just going to say, what are some of the other issues that really surround this long-term care planning and the cost of it?
Absolutely. So if we look at kind of even thinking about, kind of the variation between the care for men and women, right? We were talking about how gender can affect longevity earlier as well. So about 67% of care for women lasts 3 years or longer. And then on the flip side, 64% of care for men lasts about 5 years or less. So just kind of another interesting stat to kind of think about and chew on.
And Scott, I think if you kind of delve into, what the actual costs are of long-term care, that last part, the bottom part of that graphic that we see on the screen is that women spend more money for long-term care by about almost $78,000 over their lifetime, because men, by and large, don't end up in a nursing home. If you go to any nursing home and walk down the halls of that nursing home, you're going to see the vast majority of that population is female.
Yeah, I think we want to address long-term care potential needs for both spouses in a married couple in retirement. Of course we want to, but if we have to choose because of a cost effectiveness situation, we want to really make sure that the female is covered because of those stats. And I think about how things have changed just since I've been in the industry. We used to always talk about the average stay in a nursing home being about 3 years. That was the upper end of average. And now we're seeing on that chart that 67% last 3 years or longer. So I think that's a indicative of the medical technology side of this, right? I mean, we are keeping people alive for longer amounts of time, and I think that has to be part of this longevity risk discussion. And also, not on this chart, the instance of disability nearly doubles with each passing decade for those over 70. So the data, the statistics suggest that there is a very high likelihood that you are going to need some sort of long-term care in your future. So how do you plan for it? So Lauren, let's go back to you on that. What do you see the financial services profession doing to try to address these costs, which are pretty astronomical, as we showed on that chart, and the threat they may pose for the dignity and financial independence of clients?
Yes, well, the good news is that there has been a tremendous amount of innovation and development, kind of flexibility, if you will, added to kind of the benefits and what's available option-wise for long-term care coverage. So when we think about kind of traditional life insurance-based long-term care solutions, they've evolved to really incorporate and cover long-term care alternatives as well, including things like home health care, hospice care, personal care in the home, assisted living facilities, and even adult daycare centers and community facilities. So just kind of a lot of additional options aside from or in addition to kind of what everyone may think of or generalize as kind of that more traditional long-term care coverage. There's also been a lot of development with kind of hybrid solutions. So there's these hybrid annuity solutions that exist out in the marketplace as well that offer long-term care benefits. And they can really provide, again, a lot of optionality for flexibility and oftentimes some lower costs that are associated with that long-term care benefits coverage. There's also been a lot of creation, innovation focused on planning software that helps to incorporate long-term care into the total picture of the client's finances as well. So just more attention, more development, again, flexibility, optionality that has come to market with all the attention on longevity risk and needing to plan for that.
All right, Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today on the Get Ready for the Future show. Your insight's been great as always, and we look forward to having you back sometime very soon.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure, and I appreciate it. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
All right, thanks, Lauren Mitchell from LPL Financial. Scott, when you think about this whole issue of long-term care and longevity in retirement, it really does beg for a plan.
Yeah.
A total comprehensive look at everything that's going on, because what we want to do instinctively, is just address this one little thing.
Right.
And piecemealing it can create a disaster.
Yeah. That's what I think about throughout this entire show. When you think about making sure you don't outlive your money, whether you need an annuity, that is not a standalone decision. That is a decision that can only be made through going through the process of a comprehensive financial plan or building a comprehensive financial plan. I don't think any of those. There are great long-term care solutions out there that Lauren just went over, but you should not make that as a standalone decision. Oh, I want to go buy a long-term care insurance policy, and that's all I'm going to do, because it could be that you may not need a long-term care insurance policy if you have, as we like to say, overfunded retirement. Because here's what we're going to do. When we bring someone in for a financial plan, part of that process is going to be talking about what income do you have to have, what is required to pay your monthly expenses, and that will determine if you have it once it's set across the other side of that scale by balancing it with all your sources of guaranteed income. If there is a required income gap, that would indicate that you might be in need of an annuity to fill the gap so you have guaranteed income to pay your basic expenses. Above and beyond that, we're looking at desired income. What does lifestyle look like for you in your era of financial independence? And we'll obviously build raises into that to incorporate inflation adjustments over time. Above and beyond that, if you have a level of assets that is more than you need to produce that income, we could look at a possible long-term care bucket, a moderately invested bucket that could grow over time, that could be available to you if you have a need for long-term care. But again, all of that takes place in the planning process.
It does, Scott, and we're making it very easy for you to take advantage of this right now. During March Madness, or what we are calling the madness of the market out there.
It's been pretty mad in the basketball world, that's for sure.
It has, and it's been actually exciting to watch. But look, here's the key. You need something to get you started. So we wanted to give everyone the opportunity to have half price, half off of the cost of a financial plan here at GenWealth. All you have to do to take advantage of that is to text the word madness to 501-381-5228 or call our office at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. And we will give you a discounted rate on the financial plan, 50% off, if you make that call during the month of March. So you got a very short time to do that.
Yeah.
Go ahead and make that call and we'll get you in. The important thing is that you get started, because getting started, Scott, is a big part of it. And it all doesn't involve financial investments and products and things of that nature. There's a couple of things really quickly that you can do on your own to try to help in this longevity issue.
Yeah, when you think about, if you think longevity is a threat to your financial independence, there are things that you can do to help that, right? You can retire a few years later. That could enable your portfolio to cover you in retirement, because it will have to provide income for fewer years. Working in an enjoyable, low-stress job on a part-time basis. You know, a lot of people, financial independence doesn't mean you don't work necessarily. It might mean that, but it might mean that you find part-time work that you enjoy, and that adds to your savings, and you take less from your assets as a result. Or you could downsize to a smaller, less expensive home. A lot of people think about that. You don't need the space now that the kids are gone. And of course, that requires less withdrawals if you have a mortgage. So there's lots of things you can do, but again, how do you know if you need to do that until you have a comprehensive plan in place? Almost got there perfectly. I had just one beat of dead air, as we call it in the radio world, but that is the bell for our final thoughts, and we only have two of them today because there aren't three people on set. John, what's your final thought?
Well, a lot of thoughts around this issue.
Yeah.
Number one, get started, regardless. And I understand the world's crazy right now. You think the markets are in an upheaval. You don't know what the Fed's going to do. None of that really matters to your economy. You've got to take care of you and your economy, because, look, all of that stuff is going to happen regardless of what's going on, but you're going to continue to live. And if you have a plan, then you will have a strategy at which you can execute and actually go back to when things do get crazy in the world, because that is the foundation. That's back to base, as I call it. When things get crazy, you always go back to your plan, always go back to base, and understand what it is that you need to do and want to do with your money to be sure that you can maintain financial independence in retirement.
My final thought is we are all about education at GenWealth Financial Advisors. We want to give you free resources, some action items that you can build towards financial independence. And one of the resources we have available is an opportunity to get some information about leaving the legacy that you want. You know, all of this planning You may end up with more assets. You don't want that. You may want that last check to bounce, but the reality is a conservative plan that makes sure you don't run out of money before you run out of time. There's going to be some assets left for the next generation. We have an opportunity to learn more how to protect your family through estate planning with the GenWealth team and attorney Chris Rippey. It's coming up in Conway. It's going to be held at Hendrix College on April 4th at 6:30. Attendance is free, but seating is limited. You can sign up at getreadyforthefuture.com/estate planning. Again, getreadyforthefuture.com/estate planning. And that's all the time we have for this week's Get Ready for the Future show. As always, we thank you for being with us. Our thanks to Lauren Mitchell, Vice President of Annuity Solutions with LPL Financial, for her joining us and discussing how living a long life could be a problem for your retirement. See you next time.
The GenWealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Securities offered through LPL Financial. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Independent Advisor Alliance. Independent Advisor Alliance and GenWealth Financial Advisors are separate entities from LPL Financial.